Imagine uma noite de inverno nas grandes planícies séculos atrás. O vento uiva, cortando o ar como uma faca, e o chão fica coberto de neve. As temperaturas despencaram muito abaixo, congelando. Ainda assim, dentro de uma tenda cônica feita de peles de animais, uma família nativa americana dorme profundamente, com o fôlego estável e quente. Como eles fizeram isso? Como os nativos americanos em diversas diversidades. Paisagens desde as florestas geladas do norte até os desertos áridos sobrevivem a invernos rigorosos e tendas sem congelar até morte. Esta é uma história de engenhosidade, profundo conhecimento do mundo natural e um modo de vida tão refinado para o ambiente que permitia que as pessoas prosperassem onde outros poderiam perecer. Vamos entrar no mundo deles, começando com a própria tenda, o tipi, o wigwam, o hogan, e o descubra segredos de seu calor, sua resiliência e suas vidas notáveis. O tipi, icônico das tribos das planícies como os Lakota, Cheyenne e Blackfoot, era uma obra-prima do design. Não era apenas um abrigo, era uma casa portátil, projetada para sobreviver em condições extremas. Feito de 10 a 20 peles de búfalo costuradas com sinew, o vento em forma de conícula do tipi desviou a neve e resistiu firme tempestades. As peles eram estendidas sobre uma estrutura de 12 a 20 varas de madeira, tipicamente pinheiro lodgepole, que era leve, mas resistente. A base era fixada com estacas, e a borda inferior frequentemente era revestida com terra ou neve para bloquear as correntes de ar. Mas o verdadeiro gênio estava em sua adaptabilidade. Os Lakota poderiam erguer uma gorjeta em menos de uma hora, uma habilidade crítica para pessoas nômades, que seguem rebanhos de búfalos pelas planícies. No inverno, eles adicionaram um revestimento interno de peles, criando uma estrutura de paredes duplas. O ar preso entre as camadas externa e interna atuavam como isolamento, muito parecido com as paredes de uma casa moderna. Mas isolamento sozinho não era o suficiente para manter uma família aquecida quando as temperaturas caíam para 20 ou 30 degrees abaixo de zero. O coração do calor do tipi era seu fogo, cuidadosamente posicionado no centro. Um pequeno fogo bem cuidado queimava durante a noite, alimentado por água seca madeira como o chopo ou o salgueiro, que produzia calor constante com fumaça mínima. O buraco de fumaça pontiagudo no topo, ajustável com flaps controlados por postes, permitia a saída da fumaça enquanto retinha o calor. Por inclinando as abas contra o vento, os Lakota criavam uma corrente de ar natural, puxando a fumaça para cima e trazendo ar fresco por pequenas frestas na base. Esse sistema de ventilação era tão eficiente que um gobilhão podia permanecer aquecido e livre de fumaça, mesmo durante uma nevasca. As brasas do fogo lançavam um brilho suave, e a família dormia sobre grossas vestes de búfalo, seus corpos enrolados em camadas de pelo, suas cabeças repousando em travesseiros recheados de grama ou pelos de veado. Por toda a América do Norte, outras tribos tinham seus próprios abrigos, cada um adaptado ao ambiente. No Nordeste, o Algonquin e Iroquois construíram wigwams, estruturas em forma de cúpula de mudas curvadas, cobertas com casca de bétula ou esteiras trançadas. Esses eram menos portáteis que os tipis, mas igualmente eficazes contra o frio. A casca de bétula era impermeável e isolada, e uma camada de neve acumulada ao redor da base adicionava proteção extra. No sudoeste, os Navajo construíram as casas hexagonais ou octogonais de Hogan, feitas de troncos e terra com paredes espessas que retained heat in winter and stayed cool in summer. Each shelter, whether tipi, wigwam, or Hogan, reflected a deep understanding of local materials and climate, a testament to the diversity and brilliance of Native American architecture. Now let's talk about something strange and fascinating: the role of dogs in keeping warm. Many tribes from the plains to the Arctic relied on dogs not just as companions or hunters, but as living heaters. On frigid nights, dogs curled up beside their owners, sharing body heat. Among the Blackfoot, A family might sleep with 2 or 3 dogs, their furry bodies pressed against children or elders to ward off the chill. Dogs were so valued that some tribes bred specific types for warmth, like the thick-furred Talton bear dogs of the Northwest, which were small enough to cuddle, but tough enough to survive harsh winters. Imagine drifting off to sleep with the soft breathing of a loyal dog beside you, its warmth blending with the crackle of the fire. But warmth wasn't just about physical survival. It was woven into the spiritual and social fabric of Native American life. The fire in the teepee wasn't merely a heat source. It was sacred. Among the Cheyenne, the fire was seen as a gift from the Creator, a living presence that connected the family to the cosmos. Before sleeping, they might offer a pinch of sage or tobacco to the flames, giving thanks for its warmth. The teepee's interior was a microcosm of the universe, with the smoke hole aligned to the stars, often the North Star, symbolizing guidance and eternity. Sleeping in such a space wasn't just rest. It was a ritual, a moment of harmony with the world. Life in these tents was communal, and sleeping arrangements reflected that. In a lot of teepee, the family slept in a circle around the fire, their feet pointing toward the center to stay warm. Elders often had the coziest spots closest to the fire, while children snuggled between adults. The arrangement fostered closeness, both physical and emotional. Stories were told before sleep. Tales of trickster coyotes, brave warriors, or the origins of the stars, passing down knowledge and culture. Laughter and whispers filled the air as the fire died down, creating bonds that sustained the community through the harshest winters. One bizarre fact stands out. Some Plains tribes, like the Crow, occasionally slept outside their teepees, even in winter, to toughen their bodies or seek visions. Young men training to be warriors might strip down and sleep on a buffalo robe under the stars, enduring the cold to prove resilience or commune with spirits. This practice, called a vision quest, could last days with no food or shelter, only a robe and a pipe for prayer. Survivors returned with stories of dreams or omens, their endurance earning respect. It's a stark contrast to the cozy teepee, showing how Native Americans balance comfort with a profound respect for nature's challenges. As we linger in this scene, a family asleep in a teepee, dogs curled nearby, the fire glowing softly, consider the materials that made it possible. Buffalo hides were the cornerstone of Plains life, providing not just shelter, but clothing, blankets, and even thread. A single teepee required the hides of 10 to 20 buffalo, a reminder of the animal's sacred role. Women, who were the architects and builders of teepees, tanned these hides with meticulous care, scraping away fat, soaking them in a solution of brains and water, and smoking them to make them soft and waterproof. The process took weeks, and the result was a material so durable it could last years, even in constant use. But what about food, water, and daily life in winter? How did Native Americans sustain themselves in these tents surrounded by snow and ice? That's where our story heads next, into the rhythms of survival, the clever ways they stored food, and the surprising ways they turned winter's challenges into opportunities. For now, imagine yourself in that teepee, wrapped in a buffalo robe, the wind howling outside, but powerless to reach you. This was no mere tent. It was a fortress of warmth, a cradle of culture, and a testament to human ingenuity. The teepee stands like a sentinel against the winter storm, its buffalo hides taut and unyielding, the fire within casting a soft, flickering glow across the faces of a sleeping family. But survival in a Native American tent during the brutal cold of winter was not just about staying warm. It was about sustaining life itself. Food, water, and the daily rhythm of tasks had to be carefully managed in a world blanketed by snow, where resources were scarce and every action demanded foresight. Let's step deeper into the heartbeat of Native American life, exploring how tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo kept their families fed, hydrated, and thriving in the depths of winter. Along the way, we'll uncover surprising twists, ingenious techniques, unusual foods, and even a few daring practices that reveal the brilliance and resilience of these people. Food was the cornerstone of survival, and Native Americans were masters of preservation, turning the bounty of summer into provisions for the long, lean months of winter. On the Great Plains, the Lakota depended heavily on the buffalo, a sacred animal that provided far more than just hides for their teepees. A single buffalo could feed a family for weeks, but keeping that meat fresh in the freezing month required remarkable skill. After a successful hunt, women took charge of butchering, using knives crafted from sharpened stone or bone to slice the meat into thin strips. These strips were hung on wooden racks exposed to the sun and wind, drying into tough, leathery jerky that could last for months. The real magic, though, was pemmican, a high-calorie, nutrient-packed food that was the ultimate survival ration. To make pemmican, women pounded the dried meat into a fine powder, mixed it with melted buffalo fat, and sometimes added dried berries like choked cherries or Saskatoon berries for a touch of sweetness. The mixture was packed into rawhide bags where it hardened into a dense portable food that could sustain a family through a blizzard or a warrior on a long journey. A single handful of pemmican provided enough energy to keep a person going for days, and it could last for years without spoiling. Here's a fascinating twist. The Lakota didn't let a single part of the buffalo go to waste. The stomach was cleaned and used as a cooking pot filled with snow, hot stones, and chunks of meat to create a hearty stew. Bones were cracked open to extract marrow, a rich, buttery substance that was a prized delicacy packed with fats essential for surviving cold winters. Even the hooves were boiled down to produce glue for binding tools or securing tippy poles. This zero-waste philosophy wasn't just practical, it was deeply spiritual. The Cheyenne told stories of buffalo spirits watching over the people, ensuring every part of the animal was used with respect. To waste any part was to disrespect the buffalo sacrifice, a belief that shaped their entire way of life. In the Northeast, the Algonquin faced a different landscape with dense forests and fewer large animals like buffalo. Their survival depended on a mix of hunting, fishing, and carefully stored crops. The three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, were the backbone of their diet. Cultivated in summer and preserved for winter, corn was dried on the cob or ground into meal, then boiled into a thick porridge called samp, often sweetened with maple syrup tapped from trees in early spring. Beans were stored in bark containers, sealed with pitch to keep out moisture and pests. Squash was sliced into rings and hung to dry, its vibrant orange flesh turning leathery but retaining its nutrients. These foods were kept in underground caches, dug into the earth and lined with birch bark to protect against frost and hungry animals. The Algonquin were also skilled ice fishers, venturing onto frozen lakes to cut holes with bone chisels and drop nets woven from nettle fibers. Picture a fisherman kneeling on the ice, his breath clouding in the frigid air, pulling a wriggling trout into the pale dawn light, a small victory against the winter's grip. Water was another challenge in a frozen world. Rivers and lakes often turned to solid ice, and melting snow for drinking water was a slow, labor-intensive process. The Navajo, living in their earth-covered hogans in the southwest, collected snow in tightly woven baskets and melted it over the fire. But they also sought out natural springs which stayed liquid due to underground heat. The Lakota on the plains sometimes broke ice from streams, carrying it back to the tippy and hide bags to melt near the fire. Here's a curious fact. Some northern tribes like the Cree drank less water in winter, relying instead on the moisture in foods like pemmican, broth, or even fresh meat. Their bodies adapted to conserve water, a survival mechanism honed over generations of living in harsh climates. This adaptation allowed them to focus their energy on gathering food and maintaining warmth rather than hauling heavy ice or snow. Daily life in winter was a delicate balance of work and rest, with every member of the family contributing to survival. Women rose at dawn to tend the tippy's fire, adding logs of cottonwood or willow to keep the flame steady. They checked the smoke flaps, adjusting them to maintain the draft that kept the air clear. Men ventured out to hunt or check traps, wearing snowshoes crafted from ashwood and sinew to glide over deep drifts. Children pitched in with smaller tasks like gathering kindling from nearby trees or pounding dried meat into powder for pemmican. But winter was also a time for community and connection. Inside the tipi or wigwam, families gathered to repair tools, sew clothing, or carve new arrowheads. The Lakota played games like the moccasin game, where players took turns hiding a small object like a bone or bead under one of 4 moccasins, guessing its location amid laughter and friendly bets of beads or small trinkets. These moments of joy weren't just entertainment. They strengthened the bonds that held the community together, keeping spirits high when the cold seemed endless. Now, let's explore something truly wild. The use of sweat lodges in the dead of winter. Many tribes, including the Sioux and Ojibwe, built small dome-shaped lodges covered with hides or bark, creating a sacred space for cleansing and renewal. Inside, stones were heated in a fire until they glowed red, then sprinkled with water to produce clouds of steam. Even in freezing temperatures, people entered these lodges, stripped down, and sat in the intense heat, sweating out impurities and praying for strength. Afterward, they might step outside and roll in the snow or plunge into an icy stream. A shocking contrast that invigorated the body and spirit. This wasn't just a physical act. It was a spiritual rite believed to purify the soul and connect the individual to the Creator. The Sioux called it Ini, a ceremony of rebirth, and it was especially common in winter when the harsh conditions made spiritual resilience as vital as physical survival. Imagine the sensation emerging from a steamy lodge, your skin tingling as snowflakes melt against it, feeling alive and renewed in the face of winter's bite. Clothing was another critical layer of survival. The Lakota wore buffalo robes with the fur side turned inward for maximum warmth, sewn together with sinew, and often decorated with porcupine quills or glass beads traded from Europeans. Moccasins were lined with dried grass or rabbit fur, and mittens made from deer hide protected hands from frostbite. In the Arctic, the Inuit crafted parkers from caribou skin with hoods fringed with wolverine fur, which resisted frost buildup from breath. The Navajo, after the arrival of the Spanish, wove blankets from sheep wool, creating intricate patterns that served as both art and insulation. These garments weren't just functional. They were expressions of identity with designs that told stories of clans, hunts, or spiritual beliefs. A Lakota woman's dress embroidered with blue and red quills might depict her family's history, while a Navajo blanket's geometric patterns carried symbols of harmony and balance. Here's a cool and slightly strange detail. Some tribes used body paint as a form of insulation. The Blackfoot, for instance, mixed bear grease with red ochre and applied it to their skin before venturing into the cold. The grease created a barrier against wind and moisture, while the ochre added a layer of spiritual protection believed to ward off evil spirits or bad luck. This practice was especially common during winter hunts, when warriors faced prolonged exposure to the elements. Picture a Blackfoot hunter, his face stray with red, moving silently through the snow, his body shielded by a combination of natural ingenuity and sacred tradition. Winter brought unique dangers like frostbite or the threat of starvation. The Cheyenne had a remedy for frostbite that might surprise you. They gently rubbed the affected area with snow to restore circulation, then applied warm, not hot, buffalo fat to soothe the skin and prevent further damage. To avoid starvation, tribes like the Crow practiced strict rationing, eating small portions of pemmican or dried roots to stretch their supplies. But they also knew how to find food in the most unlikely places. The Ojibwe harvested wild rice from frozen marshes using sticks to knock grains into canoes. Even in winter, the Apache gathered mesquite pods, grinding them into a sweet, nutty flour that could be baked into cakes. These foods, often invisible to outsiders, were lifelines in lean times, proof of the tribe's intimate knowledge of their environment. The tipi glows faintly under a sky heavy with stars, the fire's embers casting soft shadows on the buffalo hide walls. Outside, the winter wind sings a low, mournful song. But inside, the Lakota family sleeps wrapped in robes, their dreams woven with the stories told before bedtime. For Native Americans, surviving the cold in tents like the tipi, wigwam, or hogan wasn't just a matter of physical endurance. It was a spiritual journey. Every aspect of life, from building a shelter to preparing food, was infused with meaning, guided by beliefs that connected the people to the earth, the sky, and the unseen forces that shaped their world. Let's step into this sacred realm, exploring the rituals, ceremonies, and beliefs that sustain tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo through the harshest winters, with a few surprising and profound practices that reveal the depth of their spiritual lives. For the Lakota, the tipi itself was more than a home. It was a sacred space, a reflection of the universe. Its circular base mirrored the horizon. The poles reaching toward the sky symbolized the connection to the heavens, and the smoke hole at the top aligned with the stars, often the North Star, which they called the star that does not walk. This alignment wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate act of harmony, placing the family at the center of creation. Before sleep, the fire was fed with cedar or sage, its smoke carrying prayers to Wakanter, the Great Spirit. The act of tending the fire was a ritual, a way of giving thanks for warmth and life. Imagine a grandmother sprinkling a pinch of sage into the flames, her soft words blending with the crackle, asking for protection through the night. The spiritual life of winter was rich with ceremonies, many of which took place inside the tent. The Lakota held the Anip ou cerimônia da cabana do suor mesmo nos meses mais frios. Como já mencionamos anteriormente, o Sweat Lodge era uma pequena estrutura em forma de cúpula de galhos de salgueiro, cobertos com couros, onde pedras aqueciam, criava vapor para a purificação. Mas o que é notável é como essa cerimônia vinculou o ato físico de mantendo-se aquecido ao ato espiritual de renovação. Os participantes entravam na loja para rezar, cantar e suar, purificando-se seus corpos e espíritos. O vapor era visto como o sopro da terra, e a escuridão dentro representava o útero de criação. Após horas de calor intenso, eles emergiram na neve, seus corpos fumegando no ar frio, sentindo-se renascido. Isso não era apenas uma forma de se aquecer. Foi um ato profundo de fé, um lembrete de que a vida persiste mesmo no domínio do inverno. Aqui está algo fascinante e um pouco estranho. Alguns tribos, como os Ojibwe, acreditavam que o inverno era um período em que os espíritos eram especialmente ativos. As longas noites escuras acreditava-se que afinavam o véu entre os mundos físico e espiritual, tornando os sonhos mais vívidos e significativos. Em seus wigwams, os Ojibwe prestavam muita atenção aos sonhos, acreditando que carregavam mensagens de ancestrais ou espíritos. Um ancião pode interpretar um sonho com uma coruja branca como um aviso de perigo, enquanto um sonho com um urso poderia sinalizar força para a primavera que se aproximava. Para incentivar essas visões, alguns Ojibwe praticavam jejum antes de dormir. Mesmo no inverno, comer apenas uma pequena porção de arroz selvagem ou peixe seco. Esse jejum não era apenas sobre disciplina, era uma forma de abrir a mente para o mundo espiritual, convidando a orientação para a comunidade. The Navajo and their Hogans had their own winter rituals, often centered around storytelling and healing ceremonies. The Hogan's octagonal shape was sacred, its door facing east to greet the rising sun, a symbol of renewal. In winter, Navajo families gathered for the Blessing Way, a ceremony to restore balance and harmony. A singer, or hatali, led the family in chants using corn pollen and sacred objects to bless the Hogan and its inhabitants. These ceremonies could last days with intricate sand paintings created on the Hogan's floor, depicting stories of creational healing. The paintings were temporary, swept away after the ceremony, their power absorbed by the participants. Picture a family sitting in the Hogan's dim light, the singer's voice rising and falling, the air thick with the scent of juniper, and the promise of renewal. one bizarre practice stands out: the use of sacred pipes in winter ceremonies. Among the Lakota, the changongpa, or sacred pipe, was a powerful symbol of unity between the people and the Creator. In winter, when travel was difficult, the pipe was smoked in the tipi during councils or prayers, its smoke carrying messages to the spirits. What's unusual is how the pipe was cared for. It was treated like a living being wrapped in soft hides and placed in a special bundle when not in use. Some Lakota believed the pipe could influence the weather, and in times of severe storms, a pipe carrier might offer smoke to the thunder beings, asking for milder conditions. This belief in the pipe's power wasn't superstition. It was a deeply held conviction that every action, even smoking, was a conversation with the divine. Winter was also a time for storytelling, and these stories weren't just entertainment. They were a spiritual practice, preserving history and teaching values. In the Algonquin wigwam, elders told tales of Nanabjo, the trickster hero who shaped the world with his mischief and wisdom. These stories often carried lessons about survival, like how to find food in winter or respect the animals that provided it. Children listened wide-eyed as the firelight danced, learning that every creature from the rabbit to the wolf had a role in the balance of life. One odd detail: some Algonquin stories were only told in winter when the snakes and spirits were asleep, as telling them in summer might anger the spirits and bring bad luck. This seasonal storytelling was a way to honor the rhythm of the earth, ensuring harmony with its cycles. The spiritual life extended to daily tasks like preparing food or maintaining the tent. For the Cheyenne, cooking was a sacred act. A woman might pray over the pemmican stew, thanking the buffalo for its sacrifice, or sing softly while grinding corn, inviting blessings into the meal. The act of sewing a teepee's hides was equally meaningful. Women used awls made from elk antler, and each stitch was a prayer for the family's safety. The Navajo wove their blankets with intention, believing the patterns carried protective energy. A blanket with a zigzag design might symbolize lightning, invoking strength, while a diamond pattern represented the 4 sacred mountains of their homeland. Here's a cool fact: some tribes, like the Blackfoot, used music to connect with the spirit world in winter. They played flutes made from cedar or bone, their haunting melodies believed to call spirits or soothe restless ancestors. A warrior might play a flute outside the teepee at dusk, his notes blending with the wind, asking for protection through the night. The sound wasn't just beautiful, it was a bridge to the unseen, a way to feel less alone in the vast frozen landscape. Winter's challenges also inspired unique spiritual practices, like the vision quest mentioned earlier. Among the Crow, young men might leave the teepee to seek visions in the wilderness, sleeping on a buffalo robe with only a pipe for company. In winter, this was especially grueling as they faced freezing temperatures and hunger to prove their courage and receive guidance from spirits. A vision of an eagle might signal leadership, while a wolf could mean stealth and loyalty. These quests weren't just for warriors. Women too sought visions, often near sacred sites like rivers or cliffs, their dreams shaping their roles as healers or leaders. As the family and the teepee drift to sleep, the smoke from the fire curls upward, carrying their prayers to the stars. The spiritual world wasn't separate from daily life. It was woven into every moment, from the way they built their tents to the stories they told. This connection gave them strength, turning the cold, dark months into a time of reflection and renewal. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans moved through the winter landscape, from hunting to traveling, and the ingenious tools and techniques that kept them safe on the move. The teepee stands steadfast in the snow-dusted plains, its smoke hole releasing a thin wisp of warmth into the starry night. Inside, the Lakota family rests, their dreams filled with the echoes of stories and prayers. But life in winter wasn't confined to the tent. Native Americans were often on the move, hunting, trading, or relocating to follow resources. Traveling through a frozen landscape, whether the wind-swept Great Plains, the snow-laden forests of the Northeast, or the rocky deserts of the Southwest, required extraordinary skill, tools, and knowledge. Let's journey with tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo, as they navigated winter's challenges, uncovering the ingenious ways they moved, hunted, and thrived on the move, along with some surprising and bold practices that revealed their mastery of the environment. For the Lakota, winter travel was a necessity, especially for nomadic plains tribes who followed buffalo herds to sustain their way of life. The buffalo didn't stop moving in winter, and neither did the people. But trudging through deep snow or across icy rivers was no simple task. The Lakota relied on snowshoes crafted from ash or willow frames laced with strips of rawhide. These snowshoes distributed their weight, allowing them to glide over drifts that would otherwise swallow their legs. Women and children used smaller, lighter versions, while hunters wore larger ones to carry heavy loads of meat or hides. Picture a Lakota hunter, his breath visible in the crisp air, moving silently across a snowfield, his snowshoes leaving faint tracks as he tracks a buffalo herd in the distance. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota didn't just walk. They sometimes traveled with travois, a simple but brilliant invention. A travois was made of two long poles, often tippy poles, lashed together at one end and dragged behind a horse or dog. The other ends were spread apart with a platform of hides or netting to carry goods, children, or even elders. In winter, the travois slid easily over snow, reducing the effort needed to transport an entire camp. Before horses arrived with the Spanish in the 16th century, dogs pulled smaller travois, each carrying up to 60 lubig of supplies. The Blackfoot bred sturdy dogs for this purpose, and a family might travel with a dozen, their barks mingling with the crunch of snow underfoot. Hunting in winter was a high-stakes endeavor, and the Cheyenne had a daring technique that stands out. When snow slowed buffalo herds, hunters used the landscape to their advantage in a practice called a buffalo jump. They herded the animals toward a cliff, shouting and waving robes to stampede them over the edge. The fall killed or injured the buffalo, providing a massive haul of meat and hides. Sites like Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump, used by the Blackfoot for thousands of years, show the scale of this method. Piles of bones still remain. What's wild is how hunters prepared. They disguised themselves with wolf or buffalo hides, mimicking the animal's movements to get close without spooking at the herd. Imagine creeping through snow draped in a buffalo calf's skin, your heart pounding as you guide a thundering herd toward its fate. In the Northeast, the Algonquin navigated dense forests blanketed in snow, relying on different tools. Their snowshoes were narrower than those of the Plains tribes. Designed for maneuverability among trees, they also used toboggans, long flat sleds made of birch bark or wood to haul game or supplies. Pulled by hand or dogs, toboggans glided smoothly over snow, perfect for transporting deer or moose killed in winter hunts. The Algonquin were expert trackers, reading subtle signs in the snow. A broken twig, a faint hoof print, or a patch of disturbed frost could lead them to game. Their bows, made from hickory or ash, were strung with sinew, which stayed flexible in cold weather, and their arrows were tipped with flint or bone sharpened to pierce thick winter hides. Water travel didn't stop in winter. And here's something surprising. Some tribes, like the Ojibwe, used frozen lakes and rivers as highways. When ice was thick enough, they walked or slid across, pulling toboggans loaded with furs or dried fish to trade with neighboring bands. To test the ice, they tapped it with long poles, listening for the deep, solid thud that signaled safety. If a river was only partially frozen, they built temporary bridges from failed logs or packed snow, a risky but necessary feat. The Ojibwe also crafted birch bark canoes for early winter before waters froze solid, coating the seams with pine pitch to keep them watertight. Picture a canoe gliding through icy slush, paddled by fur-clad warriors, their faces set against the cold as they head to a trading rendezvous. The Navajo in the southwest faced a different kind of winter landscape, arid, rocky, and often dusted with light snow. Their hogs were less portable than teepee, so travel was often for hearing sheep or trading turquoise and blankets with neighboring tribes like the Hopi. The Navajo used shore-footed horses introduced by the Spanish to navigate canyon trails, wrapping their hooves in rawhide boots to protect against sharp rocks or ice. They carried water in tightly woven baskets sealed with pitch, a precious resource in a land where springs might freeze. A Navajo rider draped in a wool blanket might travel days to reach a trading post, bartering for corn or tools, their horse's breath steaming in the chill morning air. One bizarre practice stands out: the use of fire signals for communication during winter travel. The Comanche, masters of the southern plains, lit small controlled fires on hilltops using green wood or wet hides to create thick smoke visible for miles. Different patterns, short puffs or long columns, conveyed messages like signaling a successful hunt or warning of danger. At night, they used flaming arrows shot high into the sky to guide lost travelers back to camp. This system was so effective that a message could travel faster than a runner, coordinating movements across vast snow-covered distances. Winter travel wasn't without peril. Blizzards could blind travelers and frostbite was a constant threat. The Lakota treated frostbite by rubbing snow gently on the skin to restore blood flow, then applying warm bear grease to soothe and protect. To avoid getting lost, they used the stars as guides with a Big Dipper pointing to the North Star, a beacon for navigation. The Algonquin marked trails with bent saplings or notches in trees, creating paths visible even under snow. These markers weren't just practical. They were a form of communal trust left for others to follow, a silent promise of safety. Here's a cool fact. Some tribes like the Cray sang traveling songs to keep spirits high and maintain rhythm during long treks. These songs passed down through generations told of ancestors' journeys or praised the land's beauty. A group of Cree hunters, snowshoes crunching in unison, might sing of a great moose hunt, their voices carrying through the forest, warding off fear and fatigue. The songs weren't loud, they were soft, almost a whisper, blending with the wind as if the land itself joined in. Trade was another reason for winter travel, and Native Americans were skilled negotiators. The Mandan on the Upper Missouri hosted winter trade fairs in their earth lodges, where tribes like the Haddatser and Crow exchanged buffalo hides for corn, tobacco, or obsidian. These gatherings were social as well as economic, with feasting, storytelling, and games like shinny, a hockey-like sport played on ice with curved sticks and a bone puck. Imagine the laughter as players slipped and slid, their breath clouding in the cold, while elders bartered nearby, their hands warmed by a fire. As the Lakota hunter returns to the teepee, his travois loaded with buffalo meat, the family stirs, ready to prepare the bounty. The stars overhead guide his path and the fire's glow welcomes him home. Travel in winter wasn't just about survival. It was a testament to courage, ingenuity, and connection to the land. Next, we'll delve into the social bonds that held these communities together. From marriage customs to communal hunts, and the surprising ways winter strengthened their ties, the teepee's fire crackles softly. It's like dancing on the faces of the Lakota family as they share a meal of pemmican stew, the scent of sage lingering in the air. Outside, the winter night presses close. But inside, there's warmth, not just from the fire, but from the bonds of community that hold the people together. For Native Americans, winter wasn't a time of isolation. It was a season to strengthen social ties, forge alliances, and celebrate the connections that sustained them through the cold. From marriage customs to communal hunts, tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo wove intricate networks of kinship and cooperation, creating a social fabric as resilient as their tents. Let's step into this world of relationships, exploring how winter shaped their communities with some surprising and vibrant traditions that reveal the heart of Native American life. Winter was a time for coming together, and for the Lakota, the teepee was the hub of social life. A single teepee might house an extended family, parents, children, grandparents, and sometimes aunts or uncles, sleeping in a circle around the fire, their feet toward the center for warmth. This arrangement wasn't just practical. It symbolized unity with the fire as the heart of the family. During the day, women worked side by side, tanning hides or sewing moccasins, their laughter and stories filling the air. Men gathered to carve bows or repair snowshoes, sharing tales of hunts or planning for spring. Children played nearby, rolling hoops made of willow or tossing snowballs, their giggles echoing through the camp. These moments of togetherness weren't fleeting. They were the glue that held the Lakota together, especially in winter's harsh embrace. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota organized their winter camps with precision reflecting their social structure. Teepees were arranged in a circle, mirroring the sacred hoop of life, with the chief's teepee often at the center or facing east toward the rising sun. Each family's place in the circle was determined by kinship and status, creating a living map of relationships. The camp's layout fostered cooperation. Neighbors shared food, tools, or firewood, and elders visited teepees to offer wisdom or settle disputes. This communal spirit was vital in winter when a single family might struggle alone, but a camp could thrive together. Marriage was a key bond, and winter was a prime time for courtship among many tribes. For the Cheyenne, winter camps brought young people together as families stayed closer than in the nomadic summer months. Courtship was subtle and respectful, often involving music. A young Cheyenne man might play a cedar flute outside a woman's teepee at dusk, his melodies a quiet declaration of interest. If she stepped outside to listen, it was a sign she was open to his suit. Parents played a role too, ensuring matches strengthened alliances between families or bands. Marriages were celebrated with feasts even in winter, with pemmican cakes and roasted deer shared among the camp. What's surprising is how some Cheyenne couples marked their union. They might exchange intricately beaded belts, each bead a prayer for their future, sewn by the bride's mother over weeks by the firelight. The Algonquin in their wigwams had their own winter courtship traditions. And here's something wild. They sometimes held blanket dances to bring young people together. In a large wigwam, unmarried men and women wrapped themselves in blankets and danced in a circle, their faces partially hidden. As the drumbeat quickened, they swapped blankets, revealing their partners in a playful, flirtatious game. Elders watched, chuckling as matches sparked, knowing these dances could lead to marriages that strengthened the community. The Algonquin valued equality in marriage. Women had significant say in choosing partners, and a bride's skills, like weaving mats or cooking, were as prized as a groom's hunting prowess. Communal hunts were another way winter forged bonds, and the Blackfoot had a remarkable approach. In winter, when buffalo herds were harder to find, the Blackfoot organized large-scale hunts involving entire bands. Men scouted for days, reading tracks in the snow, while women prepared drying racks and children gathered wood. When the herd was spotted, the camp moved as one, using tactics like the buffalo jump or surrounding the herd in a crescent formation. The hunt's success was shared equally. Every family received meat and hides, ensuring no one went hungry. What's cool is how the Blackfoot celebrated afterward. They held dances in a large teepee with drummers chanting and hunters reenacting the chase, their movements mimicking the buffalo's gallop. These dances weren't just celebration, they honored the buffalo's spirit, ensuring future hunts would be fruitful. The Navajo in their hogans strengthened ties through winter trading and kinship networks. Winter was a time to visit distant relatives, traveling to other hogans to share news or barter goods like wool blankets or turquoise jewelry. These visits weren't casual. They followed strict protocols of hospitality. A guest was offered food like mutton stew or fry bread before any business began, and hosts might sleep on the floor to give visitors the best bedding. Kinship was sacred to the Navajo, with clans tracing descent through mothers. A winter visit might include a ceremony to welcome a newborn into the clan with songs and corn pollen blessings. Here's a strange fact. Some Navajo believed that hosting guests in winter brought good fortune, as the act of sharing warmth and food pleased the holy people, their spiritual beings. one bizarre tradition stands out. The Lakota's giveaway ceremonies, often held in winter to reinforce community ties. When a family experienced a milestone like a marriage, a child's naming, or a warrior's return, they gave away possessions like blankets, horses, or beaded moccasins to others in the camp. This wasn't about charity. It was about balance, ensuring wealth and resources circulated. A chief might give away his finest horse to a poorer family, earning respect for his generosity. Imagine the scene: a tipi packed with people, the fire blazing as gifts are passed with smiles and songs, the camp growing stronger with every exchange. Winter also brought challenges to social harmony, like disputes over resources or space in cramped camps. The Ojibwe had a clever solution. They used talking circles to resolve conflicts. In a wigwam, a feather or pipe was passed around, and only the holder could speak, ensuring everyone was heard. Elders guided the circle, drawing on stories or proverbs to find common ground. This practice wasn't just practical, it was spiritual, rooted in the belief that harmony pleased the Creator. A resolved dispute might end with a shared meal like fish soup sealing the peace. Here's a cool detail. Some tribes like the Crow used winter to teach children social roles through games. One game called Snownaik involved sliding polished sticks across ice or snow, competing for distance. Boys and girls played together, learning teamwork and precision, skills vital for hunts or crafts. Elders watched, praising effort over victory, teaching that cooperation was more important than competition. These games were a way to pass down values, ensuring the next generation carried the community's strength. As the Lakota family settles into their robes, the tipi filled with the soft hum of a lullaby sung by a grandmother. The camp outside is quiet, its tipis glowing like lanterns in the snow. Winter didn't weaken their bonds, it forged them stronger through shared work, rituals, and moments of joy. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans cared for their bodies and minds in winter, from healing practices to mental resilience, and the surprising ways they stayed healthy in such harsh conditions. The tipi's fire glows steadily, its warmth wrapping the Lakota family in a cocoon of comfort as the winter night deepens outside. The scent of burning cedar mingles with the earthy aroma of buffalo robes, and the soft breathing of sleeping children fills the air. But survival in a Native American tent during the frozen months wasn't just about food, shelter, or community. It was about keeping the body healthy and the mind strong against the relentless cold and isolation. Tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo developed remarkable healing practices and mental resilience strategies, blending practical remedies with spiritual wisdom. Let's explore how they cared for themselves in winter, uncovering the ingenious medicines, rituals, and surprising traditions that kept them thriving body and soul in the harshest season. Winter brought unique health challenges. Frostbite, colds, and the strain of scarce food tested even the hardiest. The Lakota were skilled healers using plants and animal products to treat ailments. For frostbite, they applied a salve of bear grease mixed with crushed yarrow leaves, which soothed skin and reduced inflammation. Colds were treated with teas brewed from willow bark, rich in salicylic, a natural painkiller similar to aspirin or sage, which cleared congestion. These remedies were prepared in the teepee with women boiling water over the fire in buffalo stomach containers, the steam rising like a prayer. The knowledge of plants was passed down through generations, often by women who memorized the properties of roots, bark, and berries, found even in winter's sparse landscape. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota used hot stones not just for cooking, but for healing. To ease muscle pain or warm a sick child, they heated smooth river stones in the fire, wrapped them in soft hides, and placed them against the body. This early form of heat therapy increased blood flow and relaxed muscles, a simple but effective way to combat winter's toll. Imagine a mother gently pressing a warm stone to her child's chest, singing softly as the heat soothes a cough. The tipi's fire casting a gentle glow over the scene, The Algonquin in their wigwams had their own winter remedies often tied to the forest. They chewed spruce needles rich in vitamin C to prevent scurvy, a common winter ailment when fresh fruits were unavailable. For fevers, they brewed tea from cedar leaves, believed to cleanse the body and spirit. The Algonquin also used sweat lodges for healing, not just spiritual renewal. A sick person might enter the lodge to sweat out illness, guided by a healer who chanted and sprinkled herbs like sweetgrass on the hot stones. What's surprising is how they managed infections. They applied picuses of moss which grew under snow and had natural antibacterial properties to wounds or sores. This moss, soft and green, was gathered from frozen streams, a testament to their ability to find life in winter's grip. The Navajo in their hogs took a holistic approach to health, blending physical and spiritual care. Their healing ceremonies like the Nightway were held in winter to restore balance or hoso to a person's life. A singer led chants over several nights, creating sand paintings that depicted healing stories from Navajo cosmology. Participants drank teas made from sagebrush or juniper berries believed to purify the blood. Here's a strange fact. Some Navajo healers use sucking to treat illness, gently sucking on the skin over an affected area to remove negative energies, followed by spitting into a bowl of ash. This ritual, though unusual to outsiders, was a powerful act of faith, reinforcing the patient's connection to the community and the holy people. Mental resilience was just as critical as physical health, especially in winter's long, dark months. The Lakota fostered mental strength through storytelling, which wasn't just entertainment, but a way to teach courage and hope. Elders told tales of heroes like White Buffalo Calf Woman, who brought the sacred pipe and taught the people to endure hardship. These stories reminded listeners that winter, like all challenges, was temporary, part of the cycle of life. The Lakota also practiced meditation like reflection by the fire, focusing on gratitude for warmth, food, and family. This mindfulness helped ward off despair, keeping spirits high even when snow piled high outside. The Ojibwe had a unique way to combat winter's mental strain: dream-sharing circles. In the wigwam, family members shared their dreams each morning, believing they held clues to emotional or spiritual health. An elder might interpret a dream of a storm as a sign of inner turmoil, advising the dreamer to pray or offer tobacco to the spirits. This practice wasn't just therapeutic. It built trust, as sharing dreams required vulnerability. Here's a cool twist. Some Ojibwe crafted dream catchers in winter, weaving nets of sinew and feathers to hang above sleeping areas. These weren't just decorative. They were believed to filter out bad dreams, ensuring restful sleep and mental clarity. Winter's isolation could strain even the strongest minds, but the Navajo countered this with communal work. In the Hogan, families wove blankets together, the rhythmic clack of the loom, a soothing backdrop to conversation. Weaving wasn't just a craft, it was a meditation. With each thread, a prayer for harmony. The Navajo also held winter games like stickball played on frozen ground with teams of men and women competing fiercely. These games released tension and fostered camaraderie with laughter echoing through the cold air as players chased a leather ball with curved sticks. One bizarre healing practice stands out: the Cheyennes' use of smudging to cleanse both body and mind. They burned bundles of sage or sweetgrass, wafting the smoke over themselves or the tipi's interior to dispel negative energies or illness. During a winter sickness, a healer might smudge a patient chanting softly, believing the smoke carried away spiritual impurities. This practice was so integral that even healthy families smudged their teepee regularly, ensuring a harmonious space. Imagine the scene: a Cheyenne elder waving a smoldering sage bundle, the smoke curling upward, blending with the fire's glow, as the family breathes deeply, feeling renewed. Children were taught resilience early, and the Blackfoot had a striking method. They encouraged kids to play in the snow, even barefoot, for short periods. This wasn't cruelty. It was training, building tolerance to cold and teaching respect for nature's power. Afterward, children warmed their feet by the fire, wrapped in rabbit fur moccasins, listening to elders praise their bravery. This practice strengthened both body and mind, preparing the young for a life of endurance. Food played a role in health, too. The Cree in their northern forests ate pemmican mixed with cranberries, which boosted immunity with antioxidants. The Apache roasted agave hearts dug from under snow, providing a sweet, nutrient-rich food that lifted spirits. These small dietary choices weren't random. They were calculated to keep the body strong and the mind alert. As the Lakota family drifts to sleep, the tipi's warmth and the healer's chants linger in their minds, a reminder that health was a balance of body, spirit, and community. Winter's challenges were met with wisdom, from plant medicines to dream sharing, creating a resilience that went beyond survival. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans adapted their tents and tools to specific winter environments, from the plains to the Arctic, and the surprising innovations that made their lives possible. The tipi's buffalo hides ripple gently in the winter wind, the fire inside casting a steady warmth that holds the Lakota family in its embrace. Outside, the Great Plains stretch under a blanket of snow, but the tipi stands as a testament to human ingenuity, perfectly suited to its environment. Yet, Native American tribes across the continent, from the frozen forests of the Northeast to the arid canyons of the Southwest, faced wildly different winter landscapes, each demanding unique adaptations in their shelters and tools. The Lakakota's teepee, the Algonquins' wigwam, the Navajos' hogan, and even the Inuit snowhooses were masterpieces of design tailored to specific climates and resources. Let's journey across these diverse regions, exploring how Native Americans crafted their tents and tools to conquer winter with some surprising innovations and clever techniques that reveal their deep connection to the land. On the Great Plains, the Lakota's teepee was a marvel of portability and warmth. Designed for a nomadic life in a land of extreme weather, the buffalo hides covering the teepee were not just durable, but carefully prepared to resist winter's bite. Women tanned the hides using a mixture of buffalo brains and water, scraping away fat with bone tools until the hides were soft and pliable. After tanning, the hides were smoked over a fire of sagebrush or cottonwood, which made them waterproof and resistant to cracking and freezing temperatures. This process took weeks, but the result was a material that could withstand blizzards and sub-zero winds. The teepee's conical shape was equally ingenious. It shed snow easily, unlike flat roof structures, and its narrow top reduced heat loss. In winter, the Lakota added an extra layer of hides inside, creating an insulated air pocket that trapped warmth like a modern double-walled tent. Here's a fascinating twist. The Lakota adjusted their teepee based on wind direction. By shifting the smoke flaps with external poles, they could angle the opening to draw smoke upward while pulling fresh air in from the base, maintaining a cozy, smoke-free interior. During severe storms, they banked snow around the teepee's base, creating a natural barrier against drafts. This wasn't just practical, it was a dialogue with the environment, using the wind and snow as allies rather than enemies. Imagine a Lakota woman standing outside in the dawn light, her breath clouding as she adjusts the smoke flaps, ensuring her family's warmth for another day. In the Northeast, the Algonquins' wigwam was built for a different kind of winter, one dominated by heavy snow and dense forests. Unlike the portable teepee, wigwams were semi-permanent, designed to stay in place for months. The frame was made of flexible saplings like birch or willow, bent into a dome and lashed together with spruce roots. The covering was typically birch bark, peeled in large sheets during spring when it was supple, then layered like shingles to repel water and snow. In winter, the Algonquin packed snow around the wigwam's base, much like the Lakota, but they also added woven mats of cattail or reeds inside for extra insulation. These mats were lightweight yet effective, trapping heat while allowing the wigworm to breathe, preventing moisture buildup that could lead to mold. What's surprising is how the Algonquin used the forest itself as a tool. They selected campsites sheltered by evergreen trees, which acted as natural windbreaks and reduced snow accumulation. To keep their wigwams secure, they drove stakes deep into the frozen ground, sometimes heating the fire first to pierce the frost. Inside, a small fire pit was lined with stones to radiate heat, and the Algonquin hung furs or blankets to create partitions, keeping sleeping areas extra warm. This attention to detail made the wigwam a snug haven, even when temperatures plunged and snowdrifts piled high. In the Southwest, the Navajo's hogan was a fortress against the region's cold, dry winters. Built with logs or stone and covered with packed earth, the hogan's thick walls absorbed heat from a central fire during the day and released it slowly at night, keeping the interior stable. The door always faced east, welcoming the morning sun, which provided both warmth and spiritual renewal. In winter, the Navajos sealed cracks with clay or mud, ensuring no cold air seeped in. They also dug a shallow pit inside the hogan for the fire lined with stones to prevent scorching the earth floor. This design was so effective that a hogan could stay warm with just a small fire, even when snow dusted the desert landscape. Here's a wild innovation. The Navajo sometimes used sheepskins as an extra layer of insulation. After the Spanish introduced sheep in the 16th century, the Navajo became skilled herders, shearing wool for blankets and using the pelts to line hogan walls or cover doorways. These skins trapped heat and added a soft, cozy texture to the interior. Picture a Navajo family gathered in their hogan, the firelight reflecting off a sand painting on the floor as they wrapped themselves in wool blankets, the sheepskins overhead swaying gently in the draft. In the Arctic, the Inuit took adaptation to an extreme with their igloo stemper snowhooses that were architectural wonders. Using a bone or antler knife, they cut blocks of hard-packed snow and stacked them in a spiral, creating a dome that was both strong and insulating. The snow's air pockets trapped heat, and a small seal oil lamp provided enough warmth to keep the interior above freezing, even in 40-degree F weather. The Inuit lined the igloo floor with caribou hides and built a low tunnel entrance to block wind, with a hide curtain to seal it. Here's a bizarre fact. The Inuit sometimes slept directly on snow platforms inside the igloo, covered with thick furs, because the snow's insulation kept them warmer than the ground. They also carved small ventilation holes to prevent carbon monoxide buildup, showing a sophisticated understanding of airflow. Tools were just as critical as shelters, and winter demanded specialized equipment. The Lakota crafted ice fishing spears from sharpened bone, used to stab fish through holes in frozen rivers. The Algonquin made snow shovels from moose shoulder blades, perfect for clearing paths or digging out wigwams after a storm. The Navajo used digging sticks hardened in fire to pry roots or agave from frozen soil. The Inuit ulu, a crescent-shaped knife, was a multi-tool used to cut snow blocks, butcher seals, or scrape hides. These tools weren't just functional. They were crafted with care, often decorated with carvings or beads, reflecting pride in their purpose. One cool detail stands out: the Blackfoot's use of snow goggles to prevent snow blindness. They carved narrow slits in pieces of wood or bone, tying them over their eyes to block the sun's glare off snow. This simple invention allowed hunters to track game for hours without eye strain, a critical advantage in winter's bright reflective landscape. Imagine a Blackfoot hunter, his face framed by these goggles, scanning the horizon for elk, his vision sharp despite the blinding snow. Winter adaptations extended to clothing too. The Lakota wore mittens stuffed with buffalo hair, which was lighter and warmer than fur. The Algonquin used rabbit pelts to line hoods, their softness preventing chafing in bitter winds. The Inuit sewed waterproof boots from seal skin, using grass as insulation to wick away moisture. These innovations weren't random. They were the result of centuries of trial and error, passed down through stories and hands-on teaching. As the Lakota family tends their tipi's fire, adjusting the smoke flaps to keep the warmth in, they embody a legacy of adaptation. Each tribe's shelter and tools were a love letter to their environment, crafted with respect for its challenges and gifts. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans used winter to create art and express their culture. From beadwork to storytelling, and the surprising ways these creations strengthen their communities, the tipi's fire burns low, its embers casting a warm golden light across the Lakota family as they settle into their buffalo robes. The winter wind hums outside, but within the tent there's a quiet hum of activity. Fingers threading beads, a soft voice weaving a story, the faint scratch of a bone tool carving wood. Winter wasn't just a time for survival among Native Americans. It was a season of creation when tribes like the Lakota Algonquin and Navajo turned long, dark nights into opportunities for art and cultural expression. From intricate beadwork to epic storytelling, these creations weren't mere pastimes. They were acts of identity, resilience, and community. Let's step into this vibrant world, exploring how winter inspired art across Native American tribes with some surprising and beautiful traditions that reveal the soul of their cultures. For the Lakota, winter was a time to transform raw materials into works of art, and beadwork was a centerpiece. Women gathered around the tipi's fire, their hands deftly threading tiny glass beads traded from Europeans or porcupine quills, dyed with natural colors from roots and berries. These beads adorned moccasins, dresses, and saddlebags, creating patterns that told stories of family, nature, or spiritual beliefs. A lot woman might sew a star design onto a child's moccasin, symbolizing guidance from the heavens, or a zigzag pattern on a warrior's shirt, evoking lightning's power. The process was painstaking. Thousands of beads stitched with sinew over weeks. But it was also communal, with women sharing stories or singing as they worked. The firelight glinted off the beads, turning the tipi into a gallery of living art. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota sometimes used quill work in winter to honor buffalo. Porcupine quills softened in water and dyed red with choke cherry juice, or yellow with sunflower seeds, were folded and stitched into intricate designs on buffalo hide robes. These robes weren't just clothing. They were ceremonial, worn during dances, or given as gifts in winter giveaways. The quill's natural sheen caught the fire's glow, making the design seem to dance. What's remarkable is the skill involved. A single quill could take minutes to place, and a robe might require thousands. A testament to the patience and pride woven into every piece. In the Northeast, the Algonquin turned winter into a season of storytelling, an art form as vital as any physical craft. In the wigwam, elders spun tales of creation, heroes and tricksters like Nanabojo, their voices rising and falling with the fire's crackle. These stories weren't just entertainment. They preserved history, taught survival skills, and reinforced values. A tale about a hunter outwitting a bear might teach children to respect wildlife, while a story of a harsh winter overcome by unity inspired hope. What's surprising is how the Algonquin used props to bring stories to life. An elder might hold a carved wooden mask to represente espírito, ou use chocalho feito de carapaça de tartaruga para imitar trovão. Essas apresentações transformaram o wigwam em teatro com crianças de olhos arregalados, envoltas em peles, enquanto o rabo se desdobrava. O Algonquin também trabalhava no inverno, criando cestos com talas de cinzas ou casca de bétula. Mulheres partem troncos de cinzas em tiras finas, deixando-as de molho em água morna aquecida pelo fogo para deixá-las maleáveis. Essas tiras foram tecidas em detalhes intrincados padrões, alguns semelhantes a ondas ou estrelas, usados para armazenar alimentos ou transportar lenha. Cestos não eram só funcional. Eram arte frequentemente trocada ou dada como presente. Aqui vai uma reviravolta legal. Alguns cestos de Algonquin eram tingidos com buracos de nogueira ou mirtilos, cores escolhidas por seu significado espiritual. Preto para a força, azul para o céu. Uma cesta pode levar dias para tecer. É criador cantando suavemente, infundindo-a de intenção. No sudoeste, o Ohogan Navajo era uma oficina de tecelagem, uma forma de arte que atingia seu auge no inverno. Com eragem e plantio. Pausadas, as mulheres navajo passaram horas em seus teares confeccionando cobertores e tapetes de lã com ovelhas apresentadas pelo espanhol. O tear, uma simples estrutura de postes de cedro, foi instalado dentro do hogan, onde o calor do fogo permanecia dedos ágeis. Usando corantes naturais, índigo para azul, coachal para vermelho ou pincel de sálvia por verde, eles tinham padrões geométricos que simbolizavam relâmpagos da montanha, ou as 4 direções. Esses têxteis eram tanto práticos, usados como cobertores ou capas de sela, quanto sagrados, acreditados como portadores de energia protetora. Um tecelão poderia pray as she worked, asking for harmony in each thread. Here's a wild fact. Navajo weavers intentionally included a spirit path in their rugs, a small deliberate break in the pattern, often a thin line leading to the edge. This path allowed the weaver's spirit to escape the rug, preventing it from being trapped in the creation. Imagine a Navajo woman pausing her loom, her eyes tracing the spirit path, ensuring her work honors both art and spirituality. These rugs were so valued that they were traded across tribes, their vibrant designs a currency of culture. In the Arctic, the Inuit turned winter's darkness into a canvas for carving. Using bone, ivory, or soapstone, they crafted figures of animals, spirits, or hunters, illuminated by the soft glow of sea oil lamps in their igloos. These carvings weren't just decorative. They told stories or served as amulets, believed to bring luck or protection. An Inuit carver might spend weeks shaping a walrus tusk into a bear, its curves catching the lamp's light, while children watched learning the skill. What's bizarre is how the Inuit used their carvings in winter games. Small figures were tossed in a game called ajagak, where players tried to catch them on a pointed stick, blending art with play to lift spirits during long nights. Music was another winter art form, and the Lakota's drum was its heartbeat. In the tipi, men crafted drums from hollowed cottonwood logs stretched with rawhide, painting them with symbols like buffalo or stars. These drums were played during winter ceremonies, their deep rhythm echoing through the camp, calling the community together. Flutes made from cedar or bone were also common, their haunting notes played by young men to court or pray. Here's a cool detail. Some Lakota flutes were carved with tiny holes shaped like stars, believed to let the music reach the heavens, carrying prayers with each note. Winter art wasn't solitary. It strengthened communities. The Cheyenne held winter sewing circles where women gathered to embroider clothing with quills or beads, sharing gossip and advice. The Ojibwe carved wooden bowls together, passing tools and stories, teaching children patience. These acts of creation were acts of love, tying families and tribes closer. Even children contributed, painting rocks with ochre or stringing beads, their small hands learning the value of beauty and survival. As the Lakota family works by the fire, a woman beating a moccasin, a man carving a pipe, a child listening to a tale, the tipi becomes a sanctuary of creation. Winter's darkness didn't dim their spirits. It sparked their imagination, turning hides, wood, and wool into expressions of who they were. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans planned for the future in winter, from preparing for spring to passing down knowledge, and the surprising ways they ensured their way of life endured. The tipi's fire casts a steady glow, its warmth holding the Lakota family close, as snow falls silently outside, blanketing the plains in white. The air inside is rich with the scent of cedar smoke and drying herbs, and the soft murmur of voices weaves through the quiet night. Winter was not just a season of survival for Native Americans. It was a time of preparation, a moment to look ahead to spring and ensure the cycle of life would continue. Tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo used the long, cold months to plan for the future, from repairing tools to teaching the young, all while preserving their traditions. Let's step into this world of foresight and wisdom, exploring how they prepared for the seasons to come with some surprising and thoughtful practices that reveal their vision for continuity and renewal. For the Lakota, winter was a season to ready the tools and resources needed for spring's demands. Inside the tipi, men sharpened arrowheads, chipping flint or obsidian into razor-sharp points, testing them by firelight to ensure precision for the coming hunts. Women repaired buffalo robes, stitching tears with sinew and reinforcing seams to withstand another season of wear. They also prepared new teepee covers, tanning extra hides stored from fall hunts. This work wasn't rushed, it was deliberate, with each stitch or chip a step toward future security. The Lakota knew spring brought buffalo migrations and planting, so they stockpiled pemmican, checking rawhide bags for spoilage and repacking them with fresh fat to keep them airtight. These preparations ensured the camp could move swiftly when the snow melted, following the herds. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota used winter to map their travels for spring. Elders gathered in the tipi, drawing maps on the dirt floor or on softened hides, marking rivers, hills, and buffalo trails with charcoal or ochre. These maps weren't just practical. They were sacred, reflecting the land's spirit. A mark for a river might include a prayer for safe crossing, while a circle for a sacred hill carried stories of past hunts. Young warriors listened, memorizing routes, learning to read the land like a book. This planning wasn't solitary. It was communal, with the entire camp sharing knowledge to ensure everyone thrived in the new season. In the Northeast, the Algonquin used winter to prepare their wigwams and tools for spring's wet forests. They reinforced wigwam frames, tightening lashings of spruce roots, and replacing worn birch bark panels. Women wove new nets from nettle fibers essential for spring fishing, soaking the fibers in warm water by the fire to keep them pliable. Men crafted new snowshoes or repaired old ones, knowing spring slushy snow would demand sturdy gear. The Algonquin also checked their food caches buried underground to ensure corn beans and squash were still edible. If supplies ran low, they planned spring planting, selecting the best seeds from dried corn cobs stored in bark containers sealed with pitch. What's surprising is how the Algonquin used winter to teach children about spring's tasks. In the wigwam, elders guided young ones in making small fish traps from willow branches, showing them how to weave tight enough to catch minnows. These lessons were hands-on, with children practicing by the fire, their small fingers learning skills that would feed the community. Elders also taught planting songs, rhythmic chants that timed the sowing of corn to ensure even rouse. These songs weren't just practical, they were spiritual, honoring the earth's fertility and preparing the young for their role in the cycle. In the Southwest, the Navajo prepared for spring inside their hogans, focusing on their herds and fields. Winter was a time to repair corral, using stones or logs to reinforce pens for sheep, which would lamb in spring. Women carded wool from winter shearing, spinning it into yarn for weaving blankets to trade, when warmer weather brought visitors. Men carved planting sticks hardened in the hogan's fire to dig furrows for corn and beans. The Navajo also planned their spring ceremonies like the blessing way to ensure good harvests. They prepared sacred items, corn pollen, turquoise beads, or eagle feathers, storing them in hide pouches to protect their power. Here's a wild fact. Some Navajo buried small offerings like cornmeal or a polished stone under the hogan's floor in winter, believing it would bless the land for planting. This act connected the family to the earth, ensuring spring's abundance. Teaching the next generation was a key part of winter planning, and the Lakota had a striking method: mock hunts. In the tipi or outside in the snow, elders guided children in reenacting buffalo hunts, using sticks as spears and a rolled hide as the buffalo. Boys and girls learned to move silently, mimicking hunters, while elders corrected their stance or aim. This wasn't just play. It was training, embedding skills for spring hunts. The Cheyenne took this further, holding storytelling contests where children retold legends, judged by elders for accuracy and flair. The winner might receive a beaded bracelet, a prize that carried pride into the new season. Here's a cool tradition. The Ojibwe used winter to craft memory sticks, small wooden rods carved with symbols to record important events or plans. An elder might notch a stick to mark the number of days until spring, or carve a fish to remind the band of a key fishing spot. These sticks were shared in the wigwam, passed around as elders explained their meaning, ensuring the community's knowledge endured. Some sticks were buried in spring, a symbolic planting of wisdom for future generations. Winter planning also involved spiritual preparation. The Lakota held pipe ceremonies in the tipi, smoking the changong pa to ask for guidance in the coming season. The smoke rising through the tipi's smoke hole carried prayers for strong buffalo herds or safe travels. The Algonquin performed the shake tent ceremony, where a shaman entered a small tent to commune with spirits seeking visions of spring's weather or game locations. These rituals weren't just hopeful, they were strategic, aligning the community with the land's rhythms. One bizarre practice stands out: the Blackfoot snow counting ritual. To prepare for spring migrations, elders counted snowfalls, believing the number predicted the timing of the thaw. A winter with many light snows suggested an early spring, prompting earlier travel plans, while heavy snows meant a longer wait. This practice, rooted in observation, helped the Blackfoot time their moves to coincide with buffalo migrations. Imagine an elder standing outside the tipi, marking a stick for each snowfall, his eyes scanning the sky for clues to the future. As the Lakota family works by the fire, sharpening tools, weaving nets, teaching children, the tipi hums with purpose. Winter was a time to look forward, to mend and plan, ensuring spring brought renewal, not struggle. Their preparations were a blend of practicality and spirituality, a balance that kept their way of life vibrant. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans celebrated winter itself, from festivals to rituals, and the surprising ways they found joy in the cold. The tipi's fire glows with a steady warmth, its light flickering across the Lakota family as they gather close, their voices soft with laughter and song. Outside, the winter night wraps the plains in a quiet hush, the snow sparkling under a crescent moon. For Native Americans, winter wasn't just a season to endure. It was a time to celebrate, to find joy in the cold and darkness through festivals, rituals, and shared moments of connection. Tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, and Navajo transformed the harshest months into opportunities for gratitude, renewal, and community, filling their tents with music, dance, and stories. Let's immerse ourselves in this vibrant world, exploring how they honored winter with traditions that were as joyful as they were meaningful, uncovering some surprising and spirited practices that reveal the heart of their celebrations. For the Lakota, winter was a time for communal gatherings that turned the tipi into a stage for celebration. One of their most cherished events was the winter feast, held in a large tipi decorated with painted hides depicting buffalo hunts or starry skies. Families brought dishes like pemmican stew, roasted deer, or dried choked cherry cakes, sharing food to honor the camp's unity. The feast began with a prayer to Wakanter, the Great Spirit, giving thanks for the buffalo, the fire, and the strength to endure the cold. Drummers played, their rhythms echoing through the snow, while dancers in beaded regalia moved in circles, their steps mimicking the cycle of seasons. Children joined in, their small feet stomping, learning the dances that carried their culture forward. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota held a turtle dance in winter, a ritual to honor resilience. The turtle with its sturdy shell symbolized survival through hardship, and dancers wore turtle shell rattles on their legs, creating a rattling rhythm as they moved. The dance wasn't just symbolic, it was practical, keeping bodies warm through movement and spirits high through laughter. Imagine the scene: a tipi packed with people, the fire blazing as dancers spin, their rattles clattering, while elders nod in approval, their faces lit by pride. In the Northeast, the Algonquin celebrated winter with the midwinter ceremony, a multi-day event held in a large wigwam or long house. This ceremony marked the turning of the seasons, a time to thank the spirits for survival and pray for spring's return. The wigwam was adorned with evergreen boughs, their fresh scent filling the air, symbolizing life amid the cold. A central fire burned brightly, and participants offered tobacco or cornmeal to the flames, their prayers rising with the smoke. Storytellers took center stage, recounting tales of creation or the trickster Nanabjo, while drummers and singers added rhythm and song. What's surprising is how the Algonquin included games in the ceremony. One game called the snowball toss saw children and adults hurling snowballs at targets made of woven reeds, laughing as they missed or scored. The play fostering unity across generations. The Navajo in their hogans celebrated winter with the Yi-Bachi, or nightway ceremony, a night ritual that could occur in the cold months. This ceremony was both a healing rite and a celebration, bringing families together to restore balance and honor the holy people. The hogan was transformed with sand paintings, their intricate designs of stars or Yay figures glowing in the firelight. Singers chanted for hours, their voices weaving stories of creation, while dancers in masks reenacted the deeds of sacred beings. Families shared meals of mutton stew or fry bread, the act of eating together reinforcing kinship. Here's a wild twist. During the nightway, some participants stayed awake all night singing and praying, believing the sleepless vigil strengthened their connection to the spiritual world. Picture a hogan filled with song, the air thick with juniper smoke, as the community unites in a marathon of devotion. One bizarre celebration stands out: the Cheyennes' arrow renewal ceremony held in winter to prepare for spring hunts. In a large teepee, warriors brought their arrows, placing them before a medicine man who blessed them with sage smoke and prayers. The arrows were then renewed by refletching them with new eagle feathers or sharpening their points, ensuring they were ready for the season ahead. What's odd is how the ceremony ended. The warriors fired their arrows into the air outside the teepee, aiming for the stars. Leaving the shots carried their hopes for success to the heavens. This blend of practicality and spirituality turned a simple task into a sacred act, binding the community to its purpose. Music was a cornerstone of winter celebrations, and the Blackfoot had a striking tradition: the Sundance preparation songs. Though the Sundance itself was a summer event, winter was when singers practiced its sacred songs in the tipi, teaching them to the young. The songs, accompanied by rawhide drums, told of the sun's power and the people's gratitude for its return. Children learned by listening, their voices joining the chorus, ensuring the tradition lived on. Here's a cool fact: some Blackfoot singers used song sticks, small carved batters, to keep rhythm, tapping them against the drum or ground, their clicks blending with the music like a heartbeat. Winter celebrations also included games that brought joy and warmth. The Ojibwe played shinny, a hockey-like game on frozen lakes using curved sticks to hit a bone puck across the ice. Men, women, and children joined, slipping and laughing, their breath clouding in the cold. The game wasn't just fun. It built teamwork and endurance, skills vital for spring hunts. The Navajo played a winter game called Shoe Game, where players hit a small object in a moccasin, guessing its location amid songs and teasing. These games turned long nights into moments of connection, the laughter echoing through the snow. Children were central to winter celebrations, learning culture through play. The Lakota taught kids to make snow effigies, small figures of animals or spirits sculpted from snow, then painted with berry juice. These weren't just crafts. They were lessons in storytelling as children explained their creations to elders. The Algonquin held story circles where children retold legends, earning praise or small gifts like beads for their efforts. These activities were frivolous. They ensured traditions endured, passed from one generation to the next. As the Lakota family joins the winter feast, their voices rising in song, the tipi pulses with life. The drum beats, the shared food, the dances, all celebrate winter, not as a foe, but as a partner, a season that strengthens the spirit. Winter's celebrations were a reminder that joy could thrive in the cold, binding communities closer. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans connected with the natural world in winter. From reading the land to honoring its creatures and the surprising ways they lived in harmony with their environment, the teepee stands resolute against the winter's chill. Its buffalo hides glowing faintly under the starlit sky as the Lakota family rests within, their breaths mingling with the faint scent of sage smoke. Outside, the Great Plains stretch in silence, a vast canvas of snow and ice, alive with the subtle rhythms of nature. For Native Americans, winter wasn't a force to conquer, but a partner to understand. A season that demanded respect and reciprocity. Tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, Navajo, and Inuit lived in deep harmony with their environment, reading the land signs, honoring its creatures, and adapting to its challenges with profound wisdom. Let's walk through their winter world, exploring how they connected with nature, from tracking animals to interpreting the sky, with some surprising and awe-inspiring practices that reveal their intimate bond with the earth. For the Lakota, the winter landscape was a living entity filled with signs and stories. They read the snow like a book, noting the depth of drifts to predict spring's arrival, or the tracks of animals to guide hunts. A shallow paw print might signal a lean wolf, easy to outmaneuver, while a deep buffalo track suggested a healthy herd worth pursuing. The Lakota also watched the sky, believing the stars held messages. A bright, clear night, with the Milky Way called the Spirit Road. Visible through the teepee smoke hole was a sign of favor from Wakantanker, the Great Spirit. Before sleep, an elder might point to the stars, teaching children their names and stories like the constellation of the buffalo, guiding hunters to spring herds. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota used snow itself as a tool for survival. During hunts, they packed snow into balls to clean blood from their hands, preventing the scent from alerting other animals. They also built temporary snow walls as windbreaks when traveling, piling snow into low barriers to shield small fires or sleeping areas. This ingenuity turned winter's abundance into an ally, a resource as vital as wood or hides. Imagine a Lakota hunter, his hands red with cold, shaping a snow wall by firelight, his breath steaming as he prepares a safe camp under the open sky. In the Northeast, the Algonquin thrived in snow-laden forests, their wigwams nestled among evergreens that whispered secrets of the land. They were masters of tracking, reading subtle signs, a broken twig, a scuff in the snow, or a tuft of dur caught on bark to find game. Their respect for animals was profound. Before a hunt, they offered tobacco to the animal's spirit, asking forgiveness for taking its life. This wasn't mere ritual, it was a pact, ensuring the animal's sacrifice sustained the people without disrupting nature's balance. In the wigwam, hunters shared stories of successful hunts, thanking the deer or moose, their voices low to honor the creature's gift. What's surprising is how the Algonquin used trees as winter guides. They tapped maple trees in late winter, collecting sap for syrup, a sweet boost to their diet. But they also read trees for navigation, noting how moss grew thicker on the north side, or how branches leaned under prevailing winds pointing the way home. Elders taught children to recognize these signs, turning a walk through the forest into a lesson in survival. Picture an Algonquin child bundled in furs touching the rough bark of a pine, learning to find north by the moss's green shadow, her eyes bright with discovery. In the Southwest, the Navajo lived in harmony with a stark, arid winter landscape, their hogans rooted in the earth like extensions of the land itself. They revered the 4 sacred mountains that frame their homeland, believing each held a spirit that guided their lives. In winter, they offered corn pollen to these mountains, praying for protection and a fruitful spring. The Navajo also watched animal behavior to predict weather. Coyotes howling closer to camp signaled a coming storm, while birds flocking early meant a mild spell. This knowledge shaped their plans from hearing sheep to timing spring planting. Inside the hogan, A grandmother might teach her grandson to read these signs, pointing to a distant peak, as she explains its sacred name. Here's a wild practice. The Navajo used song trails to connect with the land. During winter travels, they sang specific songs tied to landmarks, rivers, cliffs, or mesa. Each melody a map that guided them through the desert. These songs weren't just navigation aids. They were prayers thanking the land for its guidance. A Navajo herder leading sheep through snowy canyons might sing of a red rock spire, his voice steady, blending with the wind as he follows a path etched in memory. In the Arctic, the Inuits' connection to nature was perhaps the most profound, as their survival depended on a landscape of ice and snow. Their igloos, built from snow blocks, were not just shelters, but expressions of harmony with the environment. They hunted seals through breathing holes in the ice, waiting patiently for hours, reading the water's ripples to time their strike. The Inuit honored the seal's spirit, offering a sip of fresh water to its mouth after the kill, believing this ensured the animal's soul returned to the sea, promising future hunts. This respect extended to the ice itself. Elders taught that the sea ice had a voice, creaking or groaning to warn of thinning or cracking, guiding hunters to safety. One bizarre fact stands out. The Inuit used animal bones as weather predictors. A walrus rib hung outside the igloo would bend slightly in humid air, signaling an approaching storm, while a dry, stiff bone meant clear skies. This practice, honed over centuries, allowed the Inuit to plan hunts with precision. Imagine an Inuit hunter, his face weathered by cold, checking a bone's curve before venturing onto the ice. His trust in nature's signs absolute. The Lakota also honored animals in winter through rituals like the buffalo dance performed in the teepee to ensure strong herds in spring. Dancers wore buffalo hide masks, their movements mimicking the animal's gait while drummers chanted of the buffalo's strength. This wasn't just celebration. It was a plea for harmony, a vow to hunt with respect. Similarly, the Ojibwe held winter ceremonies to honor fish, burning cedar in the wigwam, and offering prayers to the water spirits, ensuring fish return to their lakes. Here's a cool twist. The Blackfoot used snow paintings to connect with nature. They mixed ochre with melted snow, painting symbols, bison, stars, or rivers and snowbanks near their teepees. These temporary artworks, washed away by the next storm, were offerings to the land, thanking it for its gifts. Children joined in, learning to mix colors and draw, their laughter mingling with the wind as they created fleeting masterpieces. As the Lakota family sleeps, the teepee's smoke curls toward the stars, a silent prayer for harmony with the land. Their connection to nature wasn't just survival. It was a way of life, a dance with the earth's rhythms that made winter a season of respect and wonder. Next, we'll explore how Native Americans faced winter's greatest challenges: storms, scarcity, and the unknown, and the surprising resilience that carried them through. The teepee stands as a beacon in the swirling snow, its buffalo hides taut against the howling wind. The fire within casting a defiant glow across the Lakota family. The winter night is fierce, a reminder of nature's power. Yet the family sleeps soundly, their trust in their shelter and skills unshaken. For Native Americans, winter brought not only beauty and opportunity, but also its greatest trials: blizzard, scarcity, and the unpredictability of the unknown. Tribes like the Lakota, Algonquin, Navajo, and Inuit face these challenges with extraordinary resilience, blending practical ingenuity with spiritual strength. Let's walk through their world one final time, exploring how they overcame winter's fiercest moments with some surprising and inspiring practices that reveal the depth of their courage and wisdom. On the Great Plains, the Lakota knew blizzards could strike without warning, burying teepees in snow and cutting off access to food or wood. To prepare, they stockpiled firewood in late fall, stacking cottonwood or willow logs near the steep covered with hides to keep them dry. During a storm, they stayed inside, conserving energy by eating small portions of pemmican and keeping the fire low to stretch fuel. the tipi's design was their greatest ally. Its conical shape shed snow, and the smoke flaps, adjusted from inside with poles, maintained ventilation even in gale-force winds. Women reinforced the tipi's base with extra snow, packing it tightly to block drafts, turning the storm's own weapon into a shield. Here's a fascinating detail. The Lakota used storytelling to endure long blizzards. Trapped in the tipi for days, families gathered around the fire, elders spinning tales of legendary warriors or trickster coyotes to keep spirits high. These stories weren't just distractions. They were lessons in resilience, reminding listeners that their ancestors survived worse. Children huddled in buffalo robes listened wide-eyed, their fears eased by the rhythm of the Ehlers' voice and the fire's steady crackle. Imagine the scene, a tipi glowing like a lantern in the storm, its occupants bound by stories undaunted by the wind's roar. In the northeast, the Algonquin faced heavy snowfalls that could collapse wigwams or trap families inside. Their solution was proactive maintenance before storms. Men climbed onto wigwams to clear snow with wooden scoops, preventing the birch bark roof from buckling. They also dug narrow paths between wigwams, connecting the camp like a network of tunnels, allowing neighbors to share food or check on elders. When food ran low, the Algonquin relied on their underground caches of corn and beans, carefully rationed to last until spring. If starvation loomed, they ventured out on snowshoes to hunt rabbits or partridges, using snares made from sinew to avoid wasting arrows. What's surprising is how the Algonquin used communal singing to face scarcity. In the wigwam, families sang hunger songs, slow, mournful chants that acknowledged their hardship while affirming their unity. These songs, passed down through generations, weren't about despair. They were about hope, promising that the earth would provide again. An elder might lead the song. Her voice steady, as crianças se juntaram, suas vozinhas se misturando ao vento lá fora, voto coletivo de resistência. No sudoeste, os Navajo enfrentaram a escassez do inverno em uma terra onde a neve era leve, mas os recursos eram escassos. Seus hoguens, com grossas paredes de terra, os protegiam do frio, mas a escassez de comida era uma ameaça constante. Eles racionavam milho seco e carneiro, comiam pequenas refeições para esticar os suprimentos e complementavam a dieta com alimentos selvagens, como nozes de pinhão ou raízes de yucca, cavadas do solo congelado com gravetos duros pelo fogo. Para combater a sede em uma terra de nascentes congeladas, derretiam a neve em cestos sobre o fogo do Hogan, bebendo devagar para economizar energia. Os Navajo também negociava com vizinhos como os Hopi, trocando cobertores de lã por milho. Suas jornadas de inverno forjando alianças que aliviam a escassez. Aqui vai uma prática maluca. Os Navajo realizavam observação das estrelas vigílias durante invernos rigorosos. Em noites claras, famílias ficavam do lado de fora do Hogan, enroladas em cobertores, observando estrelas como sinais de esperança. Uma Vênus brilhante ou uma chuva de meteoros era vista como uma mensagem do povo santo prometendo alívio. Os anciãos ensinavam às crianças as estrelas, nomes e histórias, transformando um momento de dificuldade em uma lição de fé. Imagem: uma família Navajo, com os rostos voltados para o céu, a respiração nublada no frio, encontrando força no cosmos acima. No Ártico, os Inuit enfrentaram o maior desafio do inverno, uma paisagem de gelo e escuridão implacáveis. Nevascas podiam durar semanas, e caçadas a focas eram perigosas quando a visibilidade caía para zero. Os Inuit construíam iglus com precisão, garantindo que os blocos de neve estivessem bem compactados para resistir ao vento, e usava abajures a óleo de vedação para manter o calor, racionando cuidadosamente o óleo para durar durante tempestades. Quando a comida era escassa, eles comiam fígado de foca cru, rico em vitaminas, ou tiras mastigadas de peixe congelado. Seus corpos se adaptaram para extrair cada nutriente. Para se deslocar em blocos brancos, amarravam linhas de couro cru entre iglus ou caminhos marcados com estacas de osso, garantindo que os caçadores pudessem encontrar o caminho de volta para casa. Um fato bizarro se destaca. Os inuites usavam janelas de gelo para enfrentar o inverno desafios. Eles cortam finas cortinas de gelo transparente de lagos congelados, encaixando-as nas paredes de iglus para deixar a luz entrar enquanto ficava inconsciente. Essas janelas permitiam que os caçadores observassem ursos polares ou auroras, sinais de perigo ou esperança. Famílias inuites sentadas perto do brilho das lâmpadas podiam olhar pela janela de gelo, vendo as luzes boreais dançarem. Um lembrete de que a beleza persiste mesmo na dificuldade. A força espiritual era tão vital quanto resistência física. E as buscas de visão dos Lakota, mesmo no inverno, eram prova disso. Um jovem guerreiro, talvez, deixe o tipe para buscar orientação na neve. Jejuando e rezando por dias, seu único abrigo era o manto de búfalo. Sobreviventes. O frio era um teste de vontade, e as visões que recebia de águias ou ancestrais lhe davam coragem para enfrentar qualquer coisa desafio. Os Cheyenne II se apoiavam na espiritualidade, borrando seus tipes com sálvia, durante tempestades, para purificar o medo e convidar à proteção. Aqui vai uma reviravolta legal. O Blackfoot usava sinais de neve para coordenar durante crises. Quando uma nevasca separou os caçadores do acampamento, eles formaram pequenas neves montes em padrões, círculos para segurança, linhas de emergência visíveis quando a tempestade passasse. Esses sinais ensinavam a cada criança a garantia que ninguém se perdesse. Um ato silencioso de comunidade diante do caos. Quando a família Lakota acorda para um amanhecer mais calmo, a tempestade passa. Eles saem, a neve brilhando sob o sol nascente. A gorjeta permanece intacta, símbolo de sua resiliência. Inverno. Desafios. Tempestades, fome, o desconhecido eram enfrentados com habilidade, fé e unidade, transformando provações em... A história deles, de tipe a iglu, é de harmonia com um mundo feroz. Um legado de coragem que ecoa através do tempo. Ao deixarmos o calor da tenda, carregamos sua sabedoria para enfrentar as dificuldades com engenhosidade,